This video is brought to you in collaboration with WoWhead.com. Hello everyone! The release of the new expansion Dragonflight, it's just around the corner. And after going through the story on the beta, I'd figured that it would be a good idea to go over some of the major things that have happened to the different Dragonflights. I'll be doing it spoiler free, only the things that happened before the expansion itself, to just get you fully prepared for the adventure that is to come. We're gonna start off with the one that's probably caused the most trouble amongst all of the flights. We're starting with the Black Dragonflights.
At last, the whole of Khaz'garoth will break.
Their aspect Neltharion was empowered by Keeper Tyr and the Titans after the, at the time, Proto-Dragons banded together to end the threat of Galagrons. His personal blessing, it came from Khaz'garoth, the Shaper and Forger of Worlds. My blessing upon you will see humble compared to those which have been bestowed upon the others. The managing of time, of life, of dreams and magic. I offer you the earth, the soil, the ground, the deep places. But know that the earth is the basis of all things. It is where we are rooted, where you must come from if you are to go to. Here is whence true strength comes. From deep places, from within the world, and within oneself. Just one small problem. The earth upon Azeroth, it houses the threat of the old gods. Their whispers, they came to Neltharion even before he was made an aspect, and his connection to the earth, it made their voices all the stronger. Their corruption seeped into his mind, into his heart and into his body, spread throughout the entirety of his flights. Under their guidance, Neltharion would eventually become known under the name that most of you know him as. He will become Deathwing.
And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
Deathwing's plans and the fracturing of the aspects. That started with the creation of a powerful device, which was known as the Dragon Soul. Way back when, during the War of the Ancients, over 10,000 years ago, Deathwing suggested to his fellow aspects that they should all sacrifice a portion of their power. They would combine it all into one single device, into one single attack, all for the defense of Azeroth and the defeat of the Burning Legion.
That terrible glow. Should that be?
For it to be as it must, yes.
It is a weapon like no other. It must be like no other.
They didn't know, of course, the madness that lay hidden underneath, and they wouldn't find out until it was far too late. The disc, it did what Deathwing had promised would do, but not just the demons were going to feel its might. Azeroth defenders had to flee from the battlefield as well, and then he turned onto his fellow dragons. He nearly wiped out the entire Blue Dragonflight, which sent Malygos into the pits of despair and madness. But wielding the device also had its effects on Deathwing, which forced him to retreat and put his body back together with plates. Enough damage was caused though, yet his plans and that of the old gods, they were prevented. The Legion, it was stopped at a great price, and the Dragon Soul, now known as the Demon Soul, that was hidden away on Azeroth, away from Deathwing. Powerful enchantments were placed upon it to prevent any dragons from wielding it in the future. And of course, there were powerful protections in place to keep it out of Deathwing's hands. His treachery cursed his entire flight to a life of fear and seclusion. As in the coming ages, they'd find themselves hunted to the brink of extinction by all the other flights, except for something rather miraculous. After the war, we would see Haln High Mountain on the warpath for Deathwing, tracking him down in his vault. Inside, our Haln got his hands on the artifact, which was called the Hammer of Kaskarov. With its titanic power, Haln and his allies, they couldn't destroy Deathwing, but at least they could banish him from the lands, all the way to Deepholm, elemental plane of Earth. While there, they also managed to birth an uncorrupted black dragon. Abyssian would from then on remain a close ally to the High Mountain Tauren. As the position of High Chieftain, it passed on through Haln's line, they would always find wisdom and power from their spirit walker Ebonhorn, keeping his draconic identity a secret just between them. It was Ebonhorn that foresaw our coming during the Expansion Legion, and his assistance, it would allow us to save the High Mountain Tauren, eventually have them added to the Horde. He also met his fellow uncorrupted black dragon, Rephion. Although we might have lost Ebonhorn to the whispers of the old gods, was it not for our and Rephion's aid? There's darkness locked away within High Mountain, not to mention that an old god was released from his prison during Battle for Azeroth. We needed to empower our Heart of Azeroth with draconic power if we're gonna have any hope of taking care of N'Zoth. Again, it was a Besian that stood at their sides, doing what their aspect could not, stand up against the old gods, and guiding away to the power of his flights.
Don't make me burn your face off.
Going back to that aspect, Deathwing wouldn't stay in Deepholm forever, but it would be a comfortable recovery spot as he planned his next moves. Although the enchantments had made it impossible for him to wield the demon soul himself, that didn't mean that he couldn't guide others to the treasure, have them do the dirty work for him. It was the alien orcs that had come to Azeroth through the dark portal that would make for his perfect servants. The Dragon MacLeod was guided to the disc and instructed on how to wield it. With it, they managed to imprison the Red Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. They enslaved her, and by extension her entire Red Flight, to the will of the orcs, turning them into tools of war, and he couldn't have done much worse to her, turning her children of life into the bringers of death. Despite their added power though, the war between the Alliance and the Hordes, it would still be lost by the orcs. That didn't mean Alexstrasza's freedom though, nor did it mean that the orcs wouldn't try a second time. The Dark Portal reopened, and this time they didn't come to conquer the world, they came for some powerful artifacts. The artifacts in turn would allow them to open up more portals to different worlds. This was seen as an opportunity to our Deathwing, a gateway to a whole new world for him to conquer. The orcs were approached with a deal. They were going to take a whole bunch of his Dragon Eggs to their world of Draenor. In exchange, they would have the knowledge and power of his flight on their side during their quest of gathering these artifacts. Deathwing was accompanied by his son Sibelian and others of their flights, while the orcs finished up the mission on Azeroth and upheld their end of the bargain. Quite a dangerous allegiance, one that didn't go unnoticed by the Alliance of Lordaeron. They weren't going to let the orcs inflict the same damage to other worlds as they had brought to Azeroth. So brave heroes stepped through the Dark Portal as well to stop the Horde once and for all. Within what we now call the Blazed Mountains, Deathwing and the others, they found some heavy resistance in the form of Gruul the Dragon Killer and his children. Not to mention that Khaz'garoth and the Alliance, they started mashing up the eggs as well. Their combined assaults, not to mention Khaz'garoth figuring out how to use his magic to dismantle those blades holding Deathwing together, all of that pushed the Black Dragonflight back. And when ultimately the Alliance shut down the Dark Portal, Sibelian and several of their flights stayed on Draenor, while Deathwing, he abandoned his plans, he abandoned the Axe, he abandoned the planets, all of them, and returned to Azeroth. Escaping the destruction that followed, the magics of the Twisting Nether, which transformed Draenor into Outland as we know it as today. Sibelian and their crew, they kept up their fight against Gruul and his children, not afraid of making friends and allies, like Rexxar, or recruiting heroes while under the visage of Baron Sablemane. Anything it took to get their mission done. But besides the story that they had with the Burning Crusade, Sibelian and the others, they just kinda remained in Outlands. They haven't really been given storylines, so who knows what changes have happened to them while being away from Azeroth so long. Not to mention that by now, the world is cleansed from the old god's infection. Who knows if and when they're ever going to bring Sibelian back into the story. Who knows what he's going to be like.
Mortals. Mortals never change.
We can say for certain that those Dragon Eggs that were left behind, they did change quite a bit. Those magics unleashed that transformed the world, it also transformed these unhatched eggs from black dragons into the so-called Netherwing dragons. Ironically, it would be this new accidental breed of dragon that would restore Malygos's sanity. But that's a story we'll save when dealing with the blue Dragonflights. Keeping it with the black one, Sinfaria, also known as Sinestra. She had great interest in these Netherwing dragons, as we see her walk around during the Burning Crusade, pretending to be an emissary of the Black Dragonflights. In truth, Sinfaria hated Deathwing. She had been his prime consort, but mating with him after his transformation, it proved to be fatal for most, if not all of them. She was one of the few, if not the only one, that survived that horrific experience, only to be scarred for the rest of her life. Now she felt eternal, agonizing, burning pain, and she wanted to work on her plans and schemes away from that foul Deathwing and her flights. But what she didn't know was that she was actually still following his whispers, his guidance all along, following it to use the Netherwing dragons and create a brand new breed, this time the so-called Twilight Dragons.
Come forth, children of Twilight. Your mother calls!
It's within the book Night of the Dragon in which she would be defeated, only to then be resurrected by void magics for the expansion Cataclysm. Not a whole lot was left of her spirits. Now they just used her to create more and more of the Twilight Dragons, until heroes ventured into the bastion of Twilight, and they stopped her. Hopefully for good this time. That still didn't stop the spread of Twilight Dragons though, as they have shown up a couple of times. We've even seen Vexiona infused with the Void.
Why do you resist, sister? Do you not see the grand destiny that awaits our kind?
Deathwing's schemes run deep, the echoes of his plans everlasting. So the mad aspects, he managed to escape Draenor before turning to Outlands, and he decided to go with a bit more manipulation. His disguise was that of the noble lord Davil Prestor. With it, he managed to infiltrate the court of Lordaeron. He became buddy-buddy with the king. He almost even married his daughter Kalia. Basically, he tried to destroy the alliance from within. It might have even worked. Was his attention not drawn to a different plan? The orcs of the Dragonmaw clan. At this point, they still held Queen Alexstrasza captive. They were forcing her to breed, produce a whole bunch of eggs and dragons for the orcs to use. Seeing how his own flight had been hunted to near extinction, and how he'd lost a whole bunch more on Draenor, Deathwing decided that it was time to take Alexstrasza's eggs, add them to his flights. Fake visions of an imminent alliance attack were sent to the orcs to get them moving out of their hiding hole of Grim Batol. Then there was also the mage Ronin, sent out by Krasus to save his beloved queen. Another pawn that Deathwing could use to sell his little fiction. Long story short, Deathwing's plans failed. Alexstrasza was freed. The other aspects showed up to save her. Ronin managed to get his hands on the demon soul that the orcs were using. He destroyed it and returned the stolen aspect's powers. For the first time in over 10,000 years, Deathwing was forced to face his fellow aspects as equals, which was a battle that he simply could not win. Again, he was forced into hiding. But don't worry, he still has a son and daughter hard at work. Onyxia, she took a page out of his book and disguised herself as the noble lady Katrana Prestor. She infiltrated Stormwind and the House of Nobles, manipulated events so that the Stonemasons Guild, it was not properly paid for their work of rebuilding Stormwind. Riots were led through the streets by Edwin Van Cleef, and one single rock took the life of Queen Tiffin Ryn. This left Anduin Ryn without a mother, and Varian Ryn without a wife. The depression that followed, it left him vulnerable to her controlling magics, but the love for his son, it kept him grounded. Time for a different approach. By using the newly formed Defiance Brotherhood, led by Edwin Van Cleef, she had Varian kidnapped, and then used her magics to split the king into two. One would be his strong-willed side. That side she would dispose of, while leaving his weak-willed side alive. A side that was easy to manipulate and rule from behind the curtains. Unfortunately, her spellwork was interrupted by the Naga, which gave the strong-willed Varian a chance to escape. He would later return after earning himself some new friends, a gladiator victory and the nickname Logash. Her treachery was exposed for all of Stormwind to see. A beautiful classic questline, which most of you probably experienced by now if you ever tuned yourself to Onyxia's lair. That's where she kidnapped young Anduin Ryn. So the two parted the king and their friends. They formed a raiding party and they went after her. Many whelps and more dots later, she was kind enough to blast the two variants during the fight with magics, which also put them back together.
It seems you need another lesson, mortals.
In the end, she lost her head, quite literally, and displayed for all to see within Stormwind. Then there was her brother, Neltharion, who took on the visage of Lord Victor Nefarious. While he did dabble with the humans, infiltrated a little bit of high society, he spent most of his time with the orcs within Blackrock Mountain. They worked on his own plans and experiments to rebuild their Black Dragonflight. In time, managing to combine the powers of all the different flights into one, the so-called Chromatic Dragonflights. Not all of his experiments were successful though, but those that were proved to be extremely powerful. Horde heroes caught wind of what this Black Dragon and his so-called Dark Horde were up to. Into the mountains they went, slaying any and all that dared to stand in their way.
Your ally here attempted to match his power against mine, and paid the price.
Even poor Vilastras, a red dragon that had come to stop Neltharion, but was instead corrupted. They had to be put down. And like his sister before him, Neltharion lost his head. Put on display for the world to see our victory over the dragons. But all of that would have been the end of either siblings. Like the mother Sinfaria, Neltharion was also brought back with void magics. His dad was kind enough to pick up the head of his sister from Stormwind, and within the Blackwing descent, they tried to bring her back. not the only new experiment that was being performed there. Together with the former human Maloriak, Neltharion had once again created some incredibly powerful foes to take out, and take them out we did, despite Neltharion being really mean to us.
Allow me to grant you a title befitting the amazing achievement you just performed.
As you might understand by now, these dragons don't like to stay dead. In the case of Onyxian and Neltharion, their rest was disturbed during Battle for Azeroth, where the old god N'Zoth and his minions they wanted to bring back for yet another round. Our Rephion wasn't going to let that happen though, stopping their efforts and using the last remaining skills to make us a cloak, which actually protected us from N'Zoth's corruption, and ultimately it allowed us to take him out. Speaking of Rephion and N'Zoth, let's rewind a little bit and go back to the Cataclysm time periods. This expansion, it was the culmination of all that the old god had been working towards. They were going to bring about the Hour of Twilight, the moment in which they would be set free from the prison and rule Azeroth once more. The madness with Deathwing, it intensified, burning like it had never done before. Random territories across the world, they were put ablaze, and the elements themselves were pushed into a frenzy. They were allied with Cho'Gall, the Twilight Hammer, Ragnaros, Alakir, Druids of the Flame. Everything, basically, that they had was thrown at the world, and the world united behind Thrall and the other aspects to stop Deathwing and his schemes. They also allied with the Red Dragonflights in making something rather unique. Or at least, it was at the time, as we had no idea that Ebonhorn already existed. We were going to make the first uncorrupted black dragon within millennia. Some lines were crossed to make it so, as the red dragon Riastraza, she captured the black dragon Nixandra, forced her to lay eggs for their experiments. We then combined one of her eggs with wild black dragon eggs, black whelpling corpses, and a strange ancient titanic device. Seeing how the dragons were created by the titans, they figured that this ancient relic, it might do the trick. And they were right. That strange mixing pot, it resulted in exactly what we wanted. A purified black dragon egg, for which our Rephion, after keeping it away from Deathwing, he would hatch. What the Reds didn't plan on was that Rephion wasn't exactly happy with what they'd done, and he had no intention of following their lead or being controlled.
And Farad?
Yes, sir.
Break his legs.
And while he might not be the best team player, he did become exactly what we wanted. He was a true black dragon, one upholding the charge of keeping Azeroth safe. First task on the agenda, that was taking care of those among his own flight that were listening to the whispers of the old gods. He doesn't know about Sibelian on Outlands, but he is able to track down targets in Gilneas, or those closest to him, or even his own father. Let's not forget that pretty much anything Deathwing has done so far, it's been try and bring his old gods masters back, free from their prisons, to rule the world once more.
The hour of twilight is nigh. The sun sets on your pitiful, mortal existence.
And during the world-transforming cataclysm, we saw all that the mad aspect had to bear. His son's experiments to create a chromatic dragonflight, they were pushed forward in the book Twilight of the Aspects. A massive 5-headed dragon called Chromatis, they would have been a major threat to the world had they not taken care of it in the book. It was so powerful that they couldn't just destroy it. Instead, it had to be locked away within an arcane prison, guarded by the different flights, just waiting for the day for someone to give it the spark of life. That's where it remains even now. A rumor has it that Chromatis was actually intended to be a boss within the Dragon Soul raids, but has then been replaced by Altraxion. The monstrous Twilight Dragon is introduced by Deathwing as the culmination of all their efforts. But not even Altraxion was able to stop us. Stop the heroes of the world who had gone above and beyond, through time itself, to save Azeroth and prevent the Hour of Twilight. With the original Dragon Soul taken from the past and re-empowered, they stood shoulder to shoulder with Thrall and the Aspects. Meanwhile, the mad Deathwing was empowered by N'Zoth beyond anything he had been granted before. Even so, it wouldn't be enough. By sacrificing a huge chunk of their powers, the Aspects were able to fulfill their purpose and bring about the dawn of the Age of Mortals. Deathwing's defeat and the Aspect sacrifice, it would ripple through the flights, who now found themselves working together with the mortals to keep the domains going. Rephion, of course, had no problem accepting their aid. In fact, he made quite a lot of use of it. He offered legendary rewards for any heroes that were willing to follow his plans. plans that took us into Pandaria, where Rephion became rather close with Prince Enduin Rin, while also preparing the world for what he had seen. He had seen the coming of the Burning Legion, and he was prepared to do anything it took to prepare the world. As in his mind, a world divided would not have a chance against it. So he wanted that one faction took over from the other. He wanted the Alliance, after uniting against Warchief Garrosh Hellscream, to dismantle the Horde and take him over into one unified front. But instead, Vol'jin is appointed as Warchief, and Varian steps away.
Hi, king indeed. Why did he allow another war chief? He could have united the world under the Alliance banner. What a fool I was to trust his ambition. Should have taken over the throne room myself, like Auntie Onyxia. Get things done!
There's actually a bit of a lore problem here when it comes to Rephion's proclamation that Onyxia is his auntie and that Deathwing is his father, although they have tried to clear it up. So we know that while Rephion's creation is a bit different compared to the rest of his kind, his mother would be Nyxandra. We know from Sinestra that mating with Deathwing is an excruciating experience that leaves its scars, if not just outright kills you. So looking at Nyxandra, how can it be that she is still alive and completely unharmed? To that, there was no answer given. But to try and explain how he calls Onyxia his auntie, they've made Nyxandria Onyxia's sister, so another child of Deathwing, which has, its own implications when it comes to dragon mating. That still doesn't answer how she survived the mating though, and to that, they had to concede. Deathwing isn't technically Rephion's direct biological father. Now, before we turn this into the Mori show, personally I'd say that Rephion, he has no direct bloodline to Deathwing, but in a general sense, Deathwing would be the daddy of all the Black Dragons. Calling Onyxia his auntie, that could be seen similar to how Enduin calls Jaina his auntie. Not to mention that calling yourself the Prince of the Black Dragonflights, especially when you believe that most of your flight has been wiped out. It just adds a bit of flair, it adds a bit of a title, but that's my personal take. I would love for Blizzard to clarify. Either way, his plans of uniting the world by having one faction take over the other, they blew up in his face. His new plan was to work together with the bronze dragon Kairos Dormu. They were going to use adventurers to bring them the power needed to liberate Garrosh Hellscream from his trial, send them over to a brand new reality. There you could form a brand new horde, bring that one over into our reality, have it stand with us against the coming legion. Unfortunately, Garrosh had no intention of playing along with this, of being used by the dragons. Make no mistake, he was going to form his horde, but not in the defense of our Azeroth, rather to conquer it. The Dark Portal turned red, and Azeroth united against his threats. Once more, they stepped through the Dark Portal into this alternate Draenor. And while there were books talking about Rephion being on the planet as well, some observant players, they even saw him once or twice. He played no major role in the expansion that he started. And ironically, trying to protect the world from the coming of the Legion, it actually made it happen. From alternate Draenor, there came alternate Gul'dan, who sent over into our realm to kick off the next and biggest invasion from the Burning Legion. Varian Rin and Sylvanas Windrunner led the charge onto the Broken Shore, and it was upon these shores where Varian would sacrifice himself to give the Alliance the chance to retreat. The manipulations of a black dragon, it once upon a time meant the death of his mother, and now, once again, it meant the demise of one of Enduin's parents, and the Boy King would not forget.
Rathian.
Anduin, it's been so long.
Oh, dragons.
I suppose I deserved that.
Oh, you deserve more than that. My father is dead because of you!
And my father is dead because of the old gods.
Lad, he's come to help us.
Despite doing everything that he could to defend the world from the Legion, Rephion didn't really play a part in that final battle. That's okay though, plenty of other things to protect the world from, like the old god N'Zoth, that finally managed to escape his prison during Battle for Azeroth. In his time away, Rephion is not sat idle. His personal Black Talon agent forces, they've been expanded. He's been searching for the Dragon Isles, but also searching for ways to counter the old god's corruption. This research has led him into places like Dire Maul or the Lore Walkers in Pandaria, but he also went to Karazhan, where he had some chats with the Shade of Medivh. I can never change the actions of my past, he told him. but I can forge a new legacy to leave behind. That wisdom stuck with our young prince, whose research not only saved his brother Ebonhorn, it also equipped us to stand against the corruption of N'Zoth. With Rephion on their side, we ventured into Nyalova itself, cut our way through the heart of corruption, and for the first time in a very, very long time, the world of Azeroth is being cleansed of its old god's infection. Poetic how his father fell victim to them and caused so much destruction, where in the end, our prince, he would make things right and do what not even the Titans were able to do.
The old gods have been vanquished, yet they were only one threat to Azeroth. Many others still loom on the horizon and lurk in the shadows. Know that from this day forth, the Black Dragonflight will honor its ancient charge and stand in defense of our world, along with its champions.
And that's pretty much the major story of the Black Dragonflight. A corrupted flight with a dark legacy, but perhaps the future can be brighter. Rephion, Ebonhorn, and perhaps even Sibelian, the future of the flight is now in their hands. Time will tell what that future is going to be. But for now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Say that you want more details on all the things that we talked about today, then check out the related WoWhead article in the description down below. Say that you want to be kept up to date on future videos, as we are going to dive further into the other flights and all that the expansion Dragonflight has to offer. Make sure to subscribe and turn on that bell to be notified. Right, that's all from me for now. Until next time, see ya!